you to pay attention to this. I said on November 25th, 2009, 9/11 was done by people in our own government and our own banking system to perpetuate the fear in the American people so that they might subordinate themselves so that the government may get them to do whatever they want us to do. And this was to create this endless war on terror. But the war on terror is a cover and a fraud for the real war, which is a war against Islam. In 2001, we experienced the horrific events of 9/11, but there are many who are saying that the official government version of events is not what really happened. As recently as this month, the Republican candidate in the Texas gubernatorial race, her name is Deborah Medina, publicly said on the Glenn Beck show, quote, "I think some very good questions have been raised. In that regard, there's some very good arguments. And I think the American people have not seen all the evidence there." But she quickly backed off of what she said. Now, listen to this. Why is it, these are questions about 9/11. I compiled them, but they're compiled by people who are scientists, who studied this. Why is it that the FBI's most wanted poster of Osama bin Laden mentions other crimes, but not 9/11? Right before 9/11, unusually high levels of quote-unquote put options were placed on the stocks of American and United Airlines and corporate tenants of the World Trade Center. Put options are market bets that give the bettor a profit if the stock goes down. According to Bloomberg Business News, quote, "This would be one of the most extraordinary coincidences in the history of mankind if it was a coincidence." Many people got rich by the bets that they made that the stock in American and United Airlines would go down. How did they know? How was the FBI able to release a list and photos of the hijackers within hours? Why have at least 5 of the 19 alleged hijackers turned up alive and well living in Saudi Arabia? And if the perpetrators were from Arabia, why are we fighting in Afghanistan and in Iraq? Well, they say because Osama bin Laden was living in Afghanistan. The president of that country, Mullah Omar, when President Bush said that Osama bin Laden was guilty, and he dictated to Mullah Omar that they should turn over Osama bin Laden to the United States government and its authorities. And Mullah Omar said to President Bush, show me the proof that Osama bin Laden did this, and we will turn him over to you. President Bush, with his arrogant self, said, we're not negotiating with you. Turn him over or else. Now, what is America doing in Afghanistan? Trying to buy off the warlords? Boy, this is a sick people, man. You bomb them and laugh. Now they're kicking your behind, and now you trying to buy the allegiance of these people? Don't you know with a $25 million price on Osama bin Laden's head, why haven't somebody delivered him? See, to some people, money is not the answer. Listen, how, these are questions, how could these alleged hijackers have known that multiple classified air defense drills were planned for the morning of 9/11, leaving only 2 fighter jets available to protect the entire northeastern United States? How did Osama know that? So then, who planned the drills on that morning that no fighter jets were there to intercept these planes? Think about it. Why was Attorney General Ashcroft warned to stop using commercial airlines prior to 9/11? Let's go to the Pentagon. How come the hole in the Pentagon was 18 feet across, but the wingspan of a 757 is 146 feet? Are you listening? How come that little single-engine Piper P-828 plane that crashed into the IRS office in Texas did more damage to that building than a 757 jetliner filled with fuel did to the Pentagon? How does a pilot that failed his lessons on a 1-engine propeller plane pull off maneuvers that only a highly trained airline pilot could do? A 270-degree turn at 500 miles an hour, descending 7,000 feet in 2.5 minutes into a direct hit. These just questions. Why were surveillance videos recording the impact of the Pentagon confiscated by the FBI immediately after the event? Let's go to Pennsylvania Flight 93. You remember the one that fell into Pennsylvania? There was a big fight on board, you know, and whatnot. You know, look. Why do you all say in church that the devil is a liar? He's the damnedest liar that ever lived. Look. Question. Why was there no visible airplane debris? where Flight 93 supposedly crashed in Pennsylvania, only a smoking hole in the ground, no bodies, no seats, no wings, no luggage. The official story of 9/11 claimed that 10 sinful cell phone calls came from Flight 93, but the technology for airplane to ground cell phone calls didn't exist until 2004. Let's go to the World Trade Center. We're talking about the synagogue of Satan.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Hit that like and subscribe button for me. Enjoy the video. Thank you.
6 months before the 9/11 attacks, the World Trade Center was purchased by the Silverstein Group. I guess by that name, you might know that Mr. Silverstein might claim to be Jewish. But he bought the World Trade Center for $3.2 billion, even though the building, when it was built full of asbestos, and it would take darn near that amount of money to destroy the building and clean it. Larry Silverstein took out insurance coverage on the property, which fortuitously covered acts of terrorism. The total potential payout is $4.6 billion, and Mr. Silverstein has been paid. The result of a court ruling, Silverstein makes a huge profit off of the 9/11 attacks. And if you follow the money, you'll begin to see the synagogue of Satan at work. Now, George W. Bush's brother was a director, and his cousin was the CEO of the security firm responsible for the electronic security network of the World Trade Center prior to and during 9/11. At least one security guard at the World Trade Center reported the abrupt removal of explosive sniffing dogs 5 days prior to 9/11. Isn't that interesting? Let's go on. No steel-framed building before or since 9/11 has ever collapsed due to fire. The World Trade Center buildings were designed to withstand the impact of airlines because they were at that time the tallest buildings in the world. The melting point of steel is about 2,700 degrees Fahrenheit. The temperature of jet fuel fires does not exceed 1,800 degrees Fahrenheit. So the buildings cannot have collapsed due to heat from the fires. Why were people seen in the gaps left by the plane impacts if the heat from the fires behind them was so excessive? listen, why were there two distinct spikes, one for each tower, seen in seismic records before the towers collapsed? How could the World Trade Center towers collapse in free fall speed? Only 11 seconds for World Trade Center 1 and 9 seconds for World Trade Center 2, speeds that approximate that of a ball dropped from similar height with no air resistance. Why did so many people, including the New York Fire Department, report hearing many explosions at street level prior to the towers falling? Who were those men on top of a van with a tripod and camera across the Hudson River filming the towers before the first plane hit? How did they know to be there? And why were they celebrating? The police arrested them and let them go into Israeli custody. Why? Now, building number 7, a 47-story skyscraper and part of the World Trade Center complex was not struck by a plane, but it collapsed in 6.5 seconds at 5:20 p.m. on September the 11th in the exact manner of a controlled demolition. Why was the U.S. military explosive thermate found in the dust of the World Trade Centers? Now you might say, well, all right, let's see if our government lies and does things and takes innocent life for other purposes. This is the end of my lecture today. Did you know that the United States wanted control over Puerto Rico, the Philippines, and Guam? So President William McKinley lied about an explosion on board the USS Maine anchored in Havana Harbor that killed 260 American servicemen. They said Spain did it, but they offered no evidence. And because of that war, the Spanish-American War, the U.S. gained control over Cuba and the Philippines and Puerto Rico, Cuba in particular, so that the island could be open to United Fruit Company and other American corporations. Did Lyndon Baines Johnson lie to get us into a major war in Vietnam? The official story was that the North Vietnamese torpedo boats launched an unprovoked attack against a U.S. destroyer on routine patrol in the Tonkin Gulf on August 2nd, 1964, and that the communists followed up with a deliberate attack 2 days later. None of this was true. President Lyndon Baines Johnson used the fabricated incident to justify a momentous escalation in the war, ultimately leading to over 56,000 American deaths and millions of Vietnamese casualties. Now, when John Fitzgerald Kennedy was the president, Castro was in power in Cuba, and they wanted to invade Cuba. Did you know that there was a memo from the Pentagon to the president? We could develop a communist Cuban terror campaign in the Miami area, in other Florida cities, and even in Washington. We could blow up a U.S. ship in Guantanamo Bay, the American military base in Cuba, and blame Cuba. Casualty lists in U.S. newspapers would cause a helpful wave of national indignation. Later, the Pentagon even suggested attacking Jamaica or Trinidad and Tobago and making it look as if the Cubans were responsible, hoping this might force Britain into a war on Fidel Castro. This is America. They don't care nothing about human life when it stands in the way of a political and economic objective. Now, brothers and sisters, you know there were no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. But look how many Americans, black, brown, and white, have lost their lives on the basis of a lie.